talk about the fact that this year it seems to be the emergence of female superheroes. DC's Wonder Woman now has formed, Supergirl has formed. What do you think is what's the gender shift in 2015 in this world?
Well, first of all, I think it's a real shame. I think that it's just been something that's been lacking for a long time. I think that this genre is just catching up to the reality of how sort of powerful, interesting, and complicated women are, which as women we know, but it's really nice to see that reflection. So I am happy that it's the dawn of the female superhero, so to speak, but for me it's just sort of like it's about time, and I think we felt a responsibility to continue, and my hope is that there'll be so many female heroes that we won't even have to talk about the fact that there are female heroes, and they'll just be heroes.
So this was all you're doing, right? You brought the idea of Supergirl to Andrew Greg?
Well, what happened was that I remember this really clearly, it came up, and I turned to Greg and I said, Supergirl, we have to do Supergirl. And he was like, and then he called me and he said, I figured it out. It's Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. Ginger Rogers had to do everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in heels. And I think in Greg being able to kind of craft that as a model, it proved to us how viable and interesting a story about Kara Zor-El could be. That it's more complicated and more interesting. And so it's just been a tremendous amount of fun.
The character has always sort of existed in the shadow of Superman. Talk about philosophically how you want to deal with that on the show and make that both part of what the show's about, but also not be dependent on all that Superman.
Well, yeah, this is not a story about Superman. This is a story about Supergirl, who people really should know about. What's great about Supergirl as opposed to Superman is that she spent 13 years living on Krypton as a normal girl with no powers. And then not only does she have the trauma of everyone that she knows being killed, she comes to a world that tells teenage girls to suppress what makes them special. She comes to a world that tells teenage girls you should fit in. And you shouldn't be all of you if it's different or weird. And so what's great about this story and what makes it so interesting and so rich and so fun is that for me that's more relatable. I wasn't born with superpowers on this planet, but what Kara's experiencing in the show is coming to terms with everything that she can be and embracing who she is, and the things that make her different are also the things that make her great. And I think that as a message is so important and so relatable, and I think can be more powerful than, God, I wish I was born with superpowers.
Doing the research, this is a character that's been reinvented in a lot of different, really radical ways. What was fun about tearing through all the different iterations of Supergirl that have been kind of cherry picking at the things that you thought were going to work for the TV show?
I mean, well, that's, first of all, Frank Berlanti is the comic genius. I will not take any credit for that. But, what's fun about the fact that she hasn't been represented well enough is how much room we had to create her. People don't have as many expectations of what she's supposed to be like, which again makes it such a fun show to do. And so, for instance, the character of Alex is a brand new character. Again, what's great about Alex is she has no powers, but in a lot of ways, she really is Supergirl. And she's as Supergirl as any of us could probably get. And so there's a lot of fun in that. And I think what's great is we really honor the legacy of it. And I think totally as a reference, a film that Allie, Greg, Andrew, and I all really, really love is the Dick Donner's Superman. And Superman 2. And I think the tone of that, the fun of that, and it might just be our age, it might just be that's what we grew up with, but that's always been my favorite superhero film because, for me as a kid, it was an escape. The idea of, if I happen to fall over the railing at Niagara Falls, Superman might catch me. There's just a reality and a fun to it, and I think that's what we're trying to capture.
Is it also an opportunity to take back the word girl? Because I'm personally happy that now I can say girl again and let it be known that I'm celebrating all
Oh yeah, I personally am a big fan of the Riot Girls, and they were sort of the first to do it. And I think with any word that can be used derogatorily, or any derogatory word, with any word that people have assigned a derogatory value to, the idea of being able to redefine that is incredibly exciting and valuable. Girls Beyonce has done it. I mean, there's a lot of sort of examples of it, but I think that like there's as Kat Grant says, there's nothing wrong with being a girl, and I think that's an important message for girls and boys.
Yeah, I never knew it as a derogatory word. I thought it was more a practical matter of syllables.
It might have been, but for us, we're on here.
Can you talk about the threat to her that's kind of looming out there and how that'll be played into the series?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what's fun is because she is from Krypton and has a specific set of powers. That's always been, I think, a hard thing with Superman or Supergirl is their sort of invincibility. I mean, for Kara, her invincibility is more threatened because she hasn't been practicing. She really hid this for so long. So she's a little rusty, but by incorporating more of Krypton, I think we're going to find a lot of really sort of equal and dangerous people for her to square off against.
What about developing the male characters that you want to pit against her on her side?
On both, and I think look, Supergirl has a variety of portraits of women and men, and I think that's just the way every show should be. And so for us, there's also the fun of Picard playing Jimmy Olsen. and redefining what you think of Jimmy Olsen as. I mean, that's not what I pictured. I mean, I did not picture someone that has been a model, but that's what's fun about it, is to show his strength. And that kind of strength doesn't have to just come in the form of physical strength. And I think that's also, we want to reflect the world that people live in. And I think there will be great variety, great depth to the male characters and the female characters. And for us, that's sort of that's a genderless standard that we hold ourselves to in all of our shows.
Can you talk about landing Callista Flockhart to play Kat Grant?
I mean, there's nobody cooler than Callista Flockhart. And that was Greg Berlanti working his magic to convince her. She was unsure of coming back, doing another show, and what's so great about Callista is she really keeps Melissa on her toes. And what's great about having an actress of Callista's caliber is the amount of shading and complexity we can give to that character that could have been harsh. But in Callista's hands, it will never be. And I think it allows us to show how, in a lot of ways, Kat Grant is a Supergirl as well. And so she just brings a gravitas, but she also has amazing comedic timing. And we've seen it. She has great dramatic skills and great comedic skills, and a lot of them the same way. Melissa is sort of from the same mold as Callista, and has that kind of arsenal, that number of tools. So we wanted to have two people that we can kind of have operate against each other on so many different levels.
Ally McBeal influence at all in the approach?
I mean, not specifically. I think obviously we're huge fans of what she did with Ally McBeal, and I think Ally McBeal just showed how talented she is as an actress. But Kat Grant Callista has created an entirely different character, and I think it's fun for her as well.
There's been a lot of support for the show from Laura Vandervoort on Twitter. Is there any chance we might see her on the series at some point?
Anything is possible. We're big fans of hers.